Hi guys, so it's Lisa here again. So we left off last time with me going in to have surgery. So by now I'm out of surgery and in recovery, and I think I was probably taken into recovery around 11:30, something like that, because I started to wake up about 12 o'clock-ish. And within 12 to 1 I was been sort of fully awake by this time then. And I was in recovery for about 3 hours in total because unfortunately because I was an emergency operation, they didn't have a bed for me, so I had to wait in recovery for a bed, and I wasn't sort of taken down out of there to the ward. Actually the ward that I was on was a bowel ward at the time until probably sort of late afternoon into sort of the evening time. While I was on recovery, I sort of obviously woke up from the anaesthetic and felt it was very strange. I was kind of like in and out of it for about an hour before I fully come round. I didn't feel unwell. I was just in pain. Obviously my stomach was very tender. I'd been through an operation. At this point I didn't know what actually had happened during the operation, hadn't spoken to a consultant or anything. I did, however, have a nurse with me, and she was with me pretty much the whole time I was in recovery, apart from when she went to have a lunch and actually come back and I was still there, which she was quite surprised about. I wasn't allowed any food or drink or anything because I needed to speak to a consultant to confirm this, and the nurses wouldn't allow me until I had seen the consultant also. So because I was quite sort of dry and dehydrated, they were sort of wetting my lips with water just to keep my lips moist because I was really dry. So yes, I was in recovery, had no contact with my family, my husband, anyone, and I said this to the nurse, and actually, because my husband had wrote down he's my next of kin, she actually said that I could call him from their phone, which I did do. So she rang the number, spoke to him and told him that I was okay and that I was there and wanted to talk to him. So she put him on the phone and he was able to say sort of asked me how I was doing, and just to hear my voice I think he was pleased, and likewise for him, to be honest. I was just glad to hear his voice. So and then he kind of said, have you spoken to a consultant or anyone yet, or seen anyone? And I said no, and he said, well, we've actually seen someone. And I'm sort of and he's like, yeah. I said to him, have you contacted my family? And he said, yeah, your mum and dad are here and your brother's here, which was nice that they were all there sort of waiting for me to come out of recovery and see me. But he had said that the consultant had briefly spoke to them and said that I did have an ectopic pregnancy. It had ruptured and they had to remove my right tube. And during the surgery, because I lost so much blood, they found about, I think it was 2.5 litres of blood loose in me. So it was quite serious and quite scary, I think, for him to hear that, and also for me to hear that. And also to hear that you'd lost, 1, your baby, but 2, your tube as well. It was quite shocking, but I was sort of prepared for that, I suppose, before I went in as well, knowing that something wasn't right. So that's what they did have to do. They were able to do the keyhole surgery, so they didn't have to physically cut me open with a massive scar, so that was positive as well. And that's all he could really tell me at the time, so I had to have a blood transfusion and things. So I sort of said my goodbyes and said I'll see him shortly, and then a couple of hours obviously later we were on bowel ward. He was there, my family were there, I got to see them, and then I actually spoke to the consultant. They confirmed everything that my husband had actually told me and said that they would come back tomorrow and see how I was. And I was in a sort of little private ward in my sort of private room of my own, which was quite nice. I had like a space where there wasn't anyone else around and they could close the door if they wanted to and things like that. So my parents and stuff were still there, which they brought me a few bits in, and I think they were just relieved to see that I was okay. I could tell my mum and dad and my brother were very worried actually, along with my husband, but I think they were just kind of relieved when they saw me to know that I was okay. I actually did have a catheter in at the time, and then also because I had 3 incisions, 1 by my belly button and then 2 sort of either side of my stomach really, and my one on my right side actually had a drip in it, like a drain in it, so it sort of had a bag that any excess blood and bits could come out. So they told me I had those in, and then they would sort of come back tomorrow, see how I was doing and go from there. So my parents then eventually went home. My sister-in-law actually came and picked my husband up, and he eventually left. It was quite late, so he definitely, I don't think he wanted to leave me, but he did, which was lovely, just for him to go and get some rest. But I know he needed that rest. Although I would have loved him to stay and wanted him to stay, he needed to get some sleep too. So he came back the next day to see me then in the morning, and brought me a few extra little bits and things that I needed that we'd forgotten. And through the night, actually, it was not a very good night's sleep. I was in a lot of pain every couple of hours, having to have morphine. I obviously couldn't move or anything. It was very, very painful, so it wasn't the best night's sleep I'd had, if I'm honest, ever. And the consultant actually came and spoke to us and said that he thought it would be possible to have the catheter and drain out today, and sort of have a wash and make me feel better. And actually then the nurse come in and did that. So she took the catheter out first, which was like pulling a tampon out, so it wasn't too bad. They do it for you anyway. And then they actually pulled the drain out. That was a very unpleasant feeling. It kind of made me feel a bit sick, to be honest. And when they pulled out, they kind of said, take a deep breath in and breathe out, and when you breathe out, they pull it out, and it was sort of like so length inside you. It wasn't very nice at all, but it was out, and they cleaned the we made sure they were looking okay and not gone sort of infected or anything, and redressed the wounds so they were all looking nice, and actually helped me to get out of bed so I could have a wash. I couldn't shower, but I could have a wash. So I did have cannulas in my arms, so trying to even sit up was hard because everything was related to my stomach. But having these in, I was trying to sort of press on them to bring myself up, but that hurt because they were quite long and right in, and this one, especially my right hand, was actually touching my bones. So it was really rather uncomfortable, to be honest, to do anything. But I did have help. My husband and the nurse were there, and they got me out, got me washed, got my hair brushed, got the bed sheets changed. There's a bit of blood from the sort of drain in there as well. So it was nice and fresh, and it kind of makes you feel a little bit better. And then my husband stayed with me, and then we were taken to a gynaecology private ward, actually, because the original gynaecology ward was being refilled at the time. And they said they wanted to keep me in overnight, just to keep me, in, just to make sure I was okay, and then possibly then I'd be sent home the next day. And with that, we were sort of sent over in the evening to the private gynaecology ward. It was very posh, actually. Sort of private room of my own, flat screen TV, a lovely bed. They were very relaxed about when people come and go as well, which was nice. I suppose being private, you're not sort of disturbing anyone, which was great. So I had my husband with me then until sort of 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and then he sort of disappeared, and I was on sort of constant pain relief, really, every couple of hours. They were coming to check my obs every couple of hours, even through the night they were checking them, so you were always being disturbed in your sleep. Couldn't really sleep particularly well again, because you're trying to get comfortable, but it's very hard when you're lays on your back. I don't have a very good back anyway in general. I tend to get sort of backache and things like that, so for myself it isn't, you're trying to get comfortable, but it isn't the most comfiest, and I tend to lie on my stomach when I go to sleep, so this was a whole different situation for me, but I did manage to sleep a bit. And through the night I was having sort of help from the nurses and stuff, and my husband to go to the toilet, because he was helping me through the day and they were helping me through the night, because obviously the cannulas and everything in my arms, I couldn't get myself off the bed, and I couldn't walk to the toilet by myself, so they were having to put me on a little sort of seat trolley thing to sort of wheel me in, like a little wheelchair that you could wheel me into the toilet and wheel me off. But I was shaking. I literally, from the moment I moved to the moment I went to the toilet and come back, I shook. I kept going hot and cold. It was very shaky. It felt very faint. So the next day when we actually saw the consultant, this was on the Thursday now, we told him about the situation. My husband was obviously in again with me, and we said, you know, what do we do? What is this? Is everything okay? And they basically were happy to send us home, but I was really not happy to go home because something still wasn't right for me. So they basically took my blood to see if it was something related to my hemoglobin levels, and actually when they did come back, then they did come back low. So they gave me two alternatives: to go home and go on iron tablets. I would probably feel faint for a while until the iron tablets started to kick in, or I could have another blood transfusion and it would work instantly. So I obviously opted for the blood transfusion, had that done straight away. My blood itself is actually AB positive, so they obviously arranged to get all of that sorted, because I think it's AB positive blood can only have, like myself, I can only have AB positive blood. So it's, I think, I get a bit confused with all the blood types and things. I know O is the most popular one to have. But yeah, so AB positive, I can only have AB positive blood. So they got the blood sorted, and actually the nurse that did the blood transfusion for me was amazing. She was lovely. Really, really nice lady, was very informative. I think she was only actually bank staff, but she was only saw her the once while I was in there, but she was by far the nicest nurse we had while we were there. She was just lovely. My husband actually come in to help me give me a shower the one day, and I said, she was on about coming in to change the beds, and I said, oh, my husband's going to come in a moment to give me a shower, would it be okay for you to come back and do it then, just because I do need help? And she said that's absolutely fine. She said, oh, he's going to give you a wash down, is he, sort of thing, like joking. And she was lovely, really, really nice lady. But later on the Thursday, I did have 2 sets of blood transfusions, and instantly it made a difference. It's a very weird sensation because I often have to do it fresh. So they put it in my right cannula, which was actually one of the worst cannula, the cannulas in my arm, because it actually touched my bone. My left one wasn't as bad. So I had the right one in, and they basically have to do it. So you have to get it out of the fridge, and you have to be ready to have it done. So they take your obs, they pop it on, they put it in, and you're then set for 2 hours. They come and check you after 15 minutes, and then once the 2 hours are up, once it's finished, and then they repeat the whole process again, because I had to actually have 2 pints of blood. So I had 4 hours worth of sitting there with blood. The sensation is rather strange, because your body sort of, as your body naturally pumps it in. It's really weird. So you feel every pulse that goes through your vein in your hand. It's quite painful actually, but you kind of get used to it as time goes on. And so I had that done, and instantly did feel better actually, was able to move around a bit more comfortably, not feel so faint and dizzy. And they kept me in overnight just to monitor me, see how I was doing the next day. And then the next day, my husband again was in, as he is with every day I was in hospital. He was there from first thing in the morning to last thing at night. He stayed with me, and I was feeling a lot better, and basically they decided that they would discharge me, which they did. But before they discharged me, we spoke to a consultant, which had been the consultant we originally had for my operation, and he said that when he did the operation, that he's obviously removed the right side, but on the left side he saw scarring from our previous ectopic. So he said it was very, very unlikely that we would be able to conceive naturally, and he would be able to refer us for IVF. So we were sort of, we sort of said that we'd speak about it and go from there, but we were really positive that we wanted to do that. And actually later on in the day, the consultant that signed us off, which was a different consultant, a lady consultant, actually said completely something different. So she had said that they weren't able to refer us to IVF for legal reasons. They're not allowed. We have to go back through our doctors and go through the normal process. So we were rather frustrated, to be honest, and a bit annoyed. Been told one thing by one person, one thing by someone else, and I would have preferred to actually get signed off and have dealt with the original consultant, because that's the person that I've dealt with the whole time through. And if I'd heard it from him, then fair enough, but we kind of heard it from her. We were kind of a bit frustrated with her, but it was what it was, and so we thought that that was it. Right, we were getting signed out, and signed out of the hospital. I could go home. I could feel more comfortable at home as well. I'll be in my own home, in my own environment, and I was feeling much better, a bit more mobile, which was great. So they sent me home with some iron tablets again to keep my iron level up in my blood, and I was also sent home with a few other medications because I actually hadn't been to the toilet while I was in hospital, and they do like to see that you have regulated, and I hadn't. But actually, by the time, this was sort of in the morning that we got signed off, and my cannulas were taken out my arms and all that sort of thing, so you kind of get back to normal, and my husband gave me a shower and washed my hair for the first time, and it was just you kind of feeling a little bit more normal, still dealing with pain and discomfort that you can't even move, your stomach just hurts, but you can feel just a little bit more normal. And yeah, so we sort of did all that, and then in the evening we were finally discharged once we had got all of our medication and our discharge papers and everything. And my husband actually took me home, and we come home, and my family actually come over and saw me because I think they really wanted to see me. Well, I was in hospital, I had loads of my friends visited, I had lots of visitors, which was lovely. Shows that people care about you, and their thoughts are with you really, because you do, it's kind of a scary process and you do feel like you're on your own, but you do have family and friends around you even if they haven't been through the same situation as you. So it's nice to know that they're there for you if you need them. So went home, and that was sort of out of hospital and onto recovery at home really, and I never really got any checkups or anything like that. They didn't ask for me to go check up or anything like that. I'd obviously had stitches in, so they said that they take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks to come out, maybe even longer. So it was just a waiting game really, and sort of day by day I physically got better, was more mobile, couldn't obviously lift and things like that, but was able to walk around more, wasn't sort of hunched over when I walked in pain, was not taking any sort of painkillers as days went by, and probably, I think I took about 3 weeks off work, but it took about a week to be in a sort of comfortable situation where my body was comfortable, but then the psychological side kicks in, and you think of everything underneath the sun. Why did this happen to me? You're grieving because you've just lost a child. What else could possibly go wrong? Am I ever going to have children? Is this ever going to happen for us? Literally every question you can possibly think of goes through your mind. Will IVF work for us? Am I ever going to have ectopic again? Will it be as bad as this? Just your mind doesn't stop, which is the hardest part actually. Like I said, physically you're starting to heal, but mentally that's the recovery time. The recovery time for that is, I mean, now I still find it very difficult. Every day is easier, and week by week it gets easier, and only time's a healer, but you never forget, and I'll never forget the pain and the trauma and what I've been through, and it's just, you know, you deal with it in your own way, and everyone's different. Me talking about it helps, and hence why I'm doing these videos. So yeah, obviously my husband, his psychological aspects as well. Physically he doesn't have to deal with the physical side of it, but mentally he does. He's lost a child, he's seeing me upset, he's upset himself. I mean, the first week was hard because we probably didn't have a lot of time to concentrate on the mental side of it, because he was literally washing me and shaving my legs and doing all sorts of bits for me that I just literally couldn't bend over and put my socks on because I couldn't do any of it myself. And then the second week for both of us, it starts to kick in because it's that mental side. And I remember we watched a film one day, we were sort of sat on the sofa watching, it was a film about a dragon and a little boy, and it was just a kid's film, and it was just so sad. I was just in tears the whole way through, and it wasn't the film that was, it was sad, the film, but it's what I was been through that I was just emotional, an emotional wreck. I would go through I would cry all the time, in fact, all the time, and my husband would be just as upset as I would, but he wouldn't know what to do to comfort me, wouldn't know what to say. But we're a very open couple, so we're really lucky. We talk to each other about how we feel, and how we look at it and where we go from here. We talk about everything in depth, and it's great. And to be honest, he's my absolute rock. I don't know what I'd do without him. He's just absolutely amazing. Yeah, he's just amazing. He really is. I couldn't have gotten through any of this without him. Hi guys, it's Lisa here. Sorry, the camera battery died, so just had to recharge it. So we left on my husband and my mental state. So the next video we're going to be talking about some fertility tests that we've had to do, and I've had to do to check that my my left tube is viable to use. So the next video will be based on that. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really hope it does help, and I'll speak to you all soon.